I'm James Williams with Discovery News. It's hard to travel around the northern part of El Salvador without hearing about the town of El Mozote. That's because it was here in December 1981 that the Salvadoran army massacred hundreds of people, most of whom were women and children.
The sole survivor of the massacre at the hands of government troops has just died, but El Mozote and its memories live on.
¿Y qué mataron aquí?
Mujeres.
This is one of the houses where they killed the women. They herded the women into and killed them.
This year marks the 15th anniversary of the signing of the peace treaty between El Salvador's right-wing anti-communist government and a confederation of leftist guerrilla organizations called the FMLN. Just over 25 years ago, the U.S.-funded Salvadoran Army's Atla Cattle Battalion swept through the mountainous northern region of the country as part of an anti-guerrilla campaign. Sister Ann Griffin has been intimately involved with the residents of El Mozote for half a decade. She says that when the battalion reached the small hamlet of El Mozote, the village was packed with residents who had chosen not to flee, as well as people from the countryside looking for a safe haven. Since the town wasn't allied with the government or the FMLN, community leaders had received assurances from the army that the people there would be safe. It was immediately clear that wasn't the case.
The first day they just kept all the people, everybody together in the square and interrogated them. At night they were sent back to their homes and they weren't allowed to cook or make noise. The next day they started very early to collect all the people again and segregate them into groups.
The men were taken away and murdered.
It was quite bloody. Some of them they decapitated and tortured. And then they went and found the women that they liked and the young girls, and they took them up the hill here and they raped them and tortured them.
He just picked a bullet up off the ground. He just found it right there. M16. It's M16.
Next, all the women were taken away in groups and gunned down. All but one. Rufina Amaya managed to survive. She was the only townsperson to live through the massacre. I had scheduled an interview with Rufina in El Mozote to hear her story, but the night before our interview, I found out she was headed to the hospital after showing signs of a stroke. On the day of the massacre, Rufina ducked away from her captors as her group approached the house where the killing was taking place.
This is part of the old house. Here it's where they found the burnt bodies of the women.
The women at the front saw the door open and they saw inside a mound of dead bodies of their mothers and sisters and friends. They went hysterical and started to scream. So to get them in, the soldiers at the back came to push them in, and Rufina, who was at the back of the line, jumped under some bushes.
But this is the tree that she hid under, and in the bushes behind the tree.
All the children had been put in, even our own child, who was only 8 months old, her youngest baby, was taken from her breast. And they were put inside the church. And she, from where she was she heard the screams of the children. And she said even from so many children, she could identify the voices of her own children screaming.
Claudia Bernardi first came to El Salvador to assist the Argentine forensic anthropology team that was commissioned by the United Nations to investigate the massacre after the Civil War ended in 1992. She has since opened an art school in a nearby town.
This is the place that Claudia investigated with a team from Argentina.
There are 136 children, 5 teenagers and 2 adults, one of whom, by the way, was skeleton number 33, who was located right there in that angle of the southwest wall, and it belonged to a woman who at the time of death was pregnant in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy.
After the massacre, the town was destroyed. It was leveled. For 11 years, it was a ghost town until the 1992 truce ended the Civil War. At that point, those who had fled before the massacre came home.
They came back because they had no place else to go, although it was very, very frightening for many of them, and they felt there was a lot of ghosts here, and it was a very abandoned and derelict place. She says, little by little things move on, she said, and they have to learn to forgive. if they don't learn to forgive, how is God going to forgive them, whatever they did? And that they have to leave it in the hands of God to do justice to those who caused this.
Today, El Mozote is a town very much alive with activity and signs of new life.
Ever since people came back to this village after the Civil War ended in '92, they've been working hard to rebuild their lives. They've rebuilt the church, they've built a new school, a new community center, and they're in the process of building a clinic. Clearly, they're addressing the history that's happened here, but they're also working hard to move forward and live for the future. In El Mozote, El Salvador, for Discovery News, I'm James Williams.